Hello from the lighthouse. I'm back again, and this is part four of my reaction to the Outlander season one, season two, and the first three episodes of season three. So, as I've introduced this topic in the last three parts, Outlander, I started watching this one for entertainment. I just wanted something to watch. Wasn't trying to. I just wanted something easy breezy, just just something good and entertaining. And I really like this series. I think it's some amazing acting. It's very interesting. It's bringing to my attention some historical figures and happenings that I didn't know anything about in some respects, and I knew very little about in other respects. So we're going to jump right into the reaction where we left off at part three. And this time we are in season three, and these are the first three episodes of season three. I haven't seen anything past that. So we're going back to Jamie, who has found himself in the custody of the British after the Battle of Culloden. And at this point, the British soldiers are uh, getting rid of the what they call the traitors to the English king, and so they're being taken out one by one, and Jamie is in the midst of them. The commander there finds, hears him oversay his name, and he recognizes him as the man who saved his younger brother. And so he's like, I'm going to spare this man for the honor of my brother and allow him to be taken back to his family. At this point, Jamie was significantly injured, so he really didn't expect him to live through the trip. But Jamie does make it back to Lollybrock, which is his family estate, and there he is attended to by his sister Jenny and her husband Ian. So Jamie's back there; he's needing to heal. Fergus is also there, and he is the little pickpocket that Jamie employed in France and brought back with him. And he's just been very loyal to Jamie. He loves Jamie. He was actually the one who brought back from the battle on Jamie's instruction. He asked Ferguson, he directed Ferguson to take back the signing over of the property to Jenny to make sure that the property stayed in the family's name. And so Jamie is now back, but he is a fugitive. They call him the Dune Bonnet, and he is around the property, but he can never be seen there when these commanders and they're coming in and out because they're switching up the commands. But this latest commander is determined that he's going to find him, and he keeps coming back to the house at just random times just to see if they can catch Jamie or the as a fugitive there on the property. And if they catch him, it's not like they just arrest that person. It's repercussions for the entire family. They can be harmed, or they, could lose, I suppose, lose their property. So it's significant that he is not there when they show up. And so he's been staying in a cave out into the woods near the property. He's basically just in this bad place, and um, he is aware that his is very risky for his family, so he tries to protect them by staying out in the woods. And he's been in this condition for about 6 years, just kind of surviving as a fugitive. But this last commander is like, no more. We're going to bring him in, and he is basically um, making just giving the family a very hard time. He's just showing up and he's searching the property, and Jamie is saying is at the point where he's like, I really need to turn myself in because is becoming so dangerous to my family. And one of the incidents that led up to this was that the pickpocket Fergus was trying to lead the soldiers away from Jamie. He knew where Jamie stayed in the woods and in this cave, and he was trying to lead them away. And they actually ended up maiming the child. I mean, he's like a teenager probably at this time, Fergus, but they ended up maiming him. And Jamie, sees this and he's just like, this is out of hand. I'm going to have to do, I have to get them off my family's back. And so, in the course of that, or just before that, there's this lady's maid in the house, and she goes out and cleans him up and gets, she's getting ready to get him ready to pretend to show up. So he's made an arrangement with his sister where she pretends to tell the commander, send word to the commander that, hey, I've heard from Jamie. He's going to be coming into town. I will, I will let you come in and take him, and I'll accept the reward money for turning him in. And so, in that way, Jamie is like, it puts money on the property, make sure that they're taken care of, and it will also deflect away from the family so that they are not thought to be aiding him, which could be, very serious consequences for them. So before he comes in, he, has, well, the sister sends down the one of the servants from the house, and she is just bringing him some food, and she shaves him and all of that, and they get to talking. And then she's lost her husband in the war, and he's been without Claire for 6 years now. And so they have just an encounter, and it really is tender. It's tenderly done, and it's just both the it's like you lost a lot of men in this area. So she's lost her husband, and I'm sure other like, I mean, like I said, they were reduced in number greatly after this Culloden battle. So they have their time, and she says, I know that I'm not your wife, but this is something that we both need. And I just thought that was an interesting take, because when I started this review or reaction, what I did mention is that this is a very graphic show. And in one way it's graphic because of the violence and the kind of surgery and the medical treatment that you see, and they film it explicitly, like, they have to set a bone and your bone is like sticking out of your arm or something, or someone's maimed. I'm like, a body part is violently removed. They show all of that. So in that way, it was, like, I'm like, oh, I have to get over my squeamishness to try to, watch this and not turn away, because it's difficult for me to see kind of like the bloody, gory bits. But in addition to that, there's also a lot of sexuality in this show. In fact, when I first started watching it, it was stunning. I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't even know how you got this on TV, because it is so very explicit. And so when I first started watching it, it was kind of, like I had to grapple with that, because it's not something that I'm used to watching. And throughout the course of the show, I mean, the acting, it is well done. The scenery, just everything else about the show was so engaging that I kind of was like, okay, I'm, you know, I can deal with all this. I can deal with all this extra superfluous sexuality. But throughout the show, what one thing that, and I think was interesting in just confronting myself, is that with this that scene with Mary, the house servant, and Jamie, and she talked about them coming together being something that they both needed. And it was just challenging to myself. It's like, okay, when I'm watching stuff, not that I just want to just watch that, people just doing that act, but when I'm watching a show and in the context of these people, this is a married woman, she's married to Frank, she's married to Jamie, this is part of life. Almost, like the vast majority of us on this planet got here by that happening, by that action. And it's like, why do and it's like, and I haven't completely removed that like bias. Like, I don't necessarily believe it's necessary to show it. I don't feel like it's necessary. But when it is shown and is shown so explicitly, I just have to say to myself that this is part of life. This is life for all of us. Is how all of us got here. Well, most of us. I know somebody's gonna be like, I was from a test tube or something like that, but most of us got here by a sexual act. And this show, it's quite explicit. So just be prepared and have on your lenses of, this show goes into showing all of life, the bloody, the gory, bloody goriness of war, and the deepest moments in a marriage, and not marriages too. So there is that. So Jamie cleans up and then shows up at Lollybrock's gates, pretending to, come back to see Jenny. And Jenny, his sister, is not liking this plan. She agrees to it because her husband and Jamie are for it, but she really doesn't like it. She doesn't want Jamie to go to jail. She knows that it's risky what they're doing, but she's his big sister. She's very protective. She just doesn't want to see him, you know, back in a horrible situation and basically a dungeon. But he does, take that course of action. He says that basically he's in a prison. He can't go out, he can't move about. He's being basically hunted, and it's like, the least I can do is get them off of my family. I can distract. If I'm not here, they're not going to keep attacking this property. They're not going to keep showing up and, trying to flesh me out. So he ends up going to one of the prisons, and while he's at the prison, he becomes one of, like the leader there, because he'd been a commander during the battle, and he was also like a major property owner. So he's like their spokesperson, and at this time there was a changing of the commander over this prison. So the new guy who came in um, actually ended up being a young boy that he saved. So this is the younger brother of the man who um, saved Jamie when the other rebels were being taken out for treason. This is the one that put him on the cart. Well, not this guy. This guy's name is Gray. So Gray's older brother was the man who had Jamie taken back to Lollybrock instead of being taken out with the other traitors to the King of England. And so he's there and he's working with Jamie because he needs, some. He's told that this is the person to talk to kind of understand what's going on within the prison and what needs to be done, or getting the man in line. And so they have some interchanges, and Gray asked him to do some things like, some interpretation for him. And then Jamie asked, can we and the men, can we set out traps for animals to supplement our diet? And while they are out, Jamie escapes. He's going to go look for Claire, because there was a man saying that he'd run into this witch, and Jamie thought, well, let me go check it out and see if Claire might be back, or Claire is here again. But he did not find her. And so he came back to the prison, and Murtaugh is there as well. And he's like, man, why did you come back? You just should have left. And he's just kind of like, well, I'm here to be with you. And I guess he just feels like there's no life outside if he's going to keep being hunted, and then he's just not moving on from Claire, and he's just kind of sad, and he doesn't want to get married anymore. So he is in the prison. Um, he and Gray are forming kind of a little alliance to try to do a favor, get a favor. And Jamie is trying to do it on behalf of the men to make sure that they get like enough food, some blankets, things like that, just to survive in the harsh conditions of the prison. And so, in parallel to this, in the 1940s, Claire is, she delivers the baby. She has Brianna. Brianna is named after Jamie's father, and her husband, the 1940s husband, Frank Randall, completely accepts the child as his own, raises her as his own, and just adores Brianna. And he and Claire are just having it's kind of like a stalemate in their marriage because Claire is just stuck on Jamie, and he's like, I need you to come to the present time. I need you to be with me, but you're really not here. You're with him. Even when you're with me, you're still, thinking about him. I can. It's all over you that you're not here with me. You're there with him, just in your mind, and you're closing your eyes when we're making love. And it was just really, it wasn't warm and cozy, and it was very difficult. And he just was having a difficult time with it. So she ended up going to medical school, getting graduating. It sounds like from how it was portrayed in the scenes, she suggested that they have separate lives, and so they were living that way. And he had his girlfriend on the side, and she just was into her medical practice. Um, and so they were having a really bad spell, and she told him, well, why don't we just get a divorce? And he said, to her that, divorce, I would lose, my relationship with my child, because he fully accepted Brianna like he said he would. And he did not want to lose his relationship with her, so he said, no, we're not going to divorce. Just I'll just be discreet, I guess, with my girlfriend over here. And so they lived like that until Brianna graduated from high school. So she's 18, and they come home, and, they've done all the things for her birthday and everything. And he asked, can he take Brianna with him to move back to England? And Claire is like, no. And he asked her at that point for a divorce, and she's kind of, she's crying about it, and I'm not really sure what her feelings are. I'm like, you've really been you've really not been great to this man. You've been pretty horrid to him. I mean, I don't know why you would think anybody would want to continue like that, but she's crying about it, and angry or upset. I can't really understand her emotions at this point, because she really is not. I mean, at this point, I'm only 3 episodes in, and I really don't like how she treats Frank. So I'm really not understanding what you're crying about. But she's like, you know now you want a divorce? You were just waiting out the clock. And I'm like, well, he told you that. He told you he wasn't going to destroy his family and lose his relationship with the child. So they're at this place, and she's still talking about how she just can't get over Jamie to her husband. And because Frank, in his mind, this Jamie person is dead. And as far as Claire knows, even at that point, Jamie is dead. So it's like, why are we still fighting over a dead man? Because it's like it's like 19 years later, because she was like not even showing when she arrived back in the 1940s. And now Bree is 18 years old. Yeah, it's like, it's been 19 years, ma'am. And you think he's dead, and you're telling Frank he's dead. And I mean, I don't know how any people get widowed all the time. They don't. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, because she thought Jamie was dead. I mean, she didn't know he was alive. So why she was acting like that is like, you just gonna live like this till you 90? You just gonna? I mean, some people don't, I guess, but that's what she was doing. So Frank said, finally, he's like, I can't do this anymore. I want to go on with my life. And she's, her last words to him was, there's not enough time in, I guess, in the whole universe for me to ever forget about Jamie. And he, like, okay, because he wants to marry his girlfriend anyway. So he goes off and gets into a car accident and he passes away and she comes in. And it's a touching scene because she says, if you're still, close enough, I did love you. But even when you say that, it's like, so when did you stop loving him? I mean, it's even, and it's really tricky to look at this because it's like, who wouldn't love a person that's that good to them? I mean, I really don't understand the human aspect of who this Claire is when someone's that good to you and it's like you just don't appreciate it and you are horrid and you're horrid and you don't do anything about it and you think you're going to have a marriage with a red-blooded man and you're just like you're just stunned every time he does exactly what you asked him to do. You said, go live your life and be discreet. And he's like, okay, well, I'm doing that because you just told me you don't want me to touch you. I mean, she just boggles my mind in the way she treats Frank. Um, but that's how she behaves. So we'll see if it makes more sense as I get through the season. But right now, I really don't like how she treats Frank. I feel like he just does not deserve it. And I thought at one point maybe she treats him like this because when she looks at him, she sees Jonathan Randall. Which I mean, if that was why she was doing it, I could see because they look alike, and they would because they are related. But I don't know if that's why she's so hesitant. Like why she's so startled when dealing with him. But maybe that's why, because I could see that the trauma from dealing with Jonathan Randall and then going back into present time for her in the 1940s, 50s, and this man looks just like this guy who tortured you and your husband. So if that's why and that becomes apparent, maybe, but right now she just seems like really horrid, and I really don't understand why you're crying when you have broken this man's heart repeatedly. Like every year you're breaking his heart. I mean, you're looking at a man that you're just breaking him. And I'm not a defense for a man, but I mean the character is written as a really good person, and it's like even if you don't love him as like the love of your life and he's not like the Jamie of your life, just human decency would be like, I would treat him better. I'd be a little bit kinder because how do you live with somebody for 20 years and you've known him for probably 28 or something like that? I mean, she was married to him before she went away. So they've been together like almost 30 years. Like, man, what? But okay. So that's Claire. She lost Frank. She tells and she says to his corpse, I did love you. Okay. I don't know how you don't love somebody who is doing right by you, but all right. And then, um, at some point she's got to tell Brianna, so that's going to be a really tough one because it looks like Brianna's a daddy's girl. Um, so that's what's happening to Claire and Frank, and in the 17 was okay. So they started out. Oh my gosh, what time would this be? It had to be like, oh, I can't even think. If she went back, okay, 1745, and it was 6 years after, like 1751, like 1750s, somewhere in there. And again, the show does give stamps on what year they're in. I just did not record them before I sat down because I'm doing this off the cuff. I'm just having a reaction uh, to this series, and I'm just sharing my reaction. So we go back to Jamie. He's at the prison. And so they load up all the prisoners and take them out and line them up, and then they're walking them off. And Jamie is taken separately, and he's going with the commander Gray, and he asks where are they taking them, and he lets them know that the prison's being closed and that they were going to be um, sent to the colonies. So I'm looking at this, and it's just like I feel this sinking in my stomach, because it's kind of like looking at the, it's like you looking from present time, and that the mix of all of these people being forced to the colonies led to just some horrendous conditions, some horrendous time for, at least I know, my ancestors. um the Gray character tells Jamie that they're going to be indentured servants for 14 years. And I think, most, citizens of the United States, we recall from our history classes that, there was indentured servitude before there was slavery, and then he separated out the labor. And you made a class to go above another classification of people, and it's the effects are still lingering. And another thing, so just looking at that, it was kind of sad, because I didn't know, well, what part of the colonies would they end up in. Would it, the British Empire is pretty large, so where did they end up? And when you have that, these kind of battle hardened people coming into a place and they've been abused, and do they become abusers too? Are they going to be, you know are they going to just replicate the awful behavior that they just lived through? Because they were catching some really, really terrible um effects from rebelling and from just being different. I mean, they were called, the savages, and dirty and lazy and drunkards, and, teased and mocked. And their culture was, they tried to strip it away from them, and they told them that they couldn't wear the tartan and they couldn't have a weapon, and they're just being oppressed and just watched all the time and monitored all the time. So, you have a people coming from that, from being defeated, and then they're brought into an indentured servitude role. And then some of those people could have been like that bad character that's one of the Scotsmen who was a traitor who worked for the British. So it was just kind of like concerning, because it's like when you're going to the colonies, you're going into, at that time, there's some indentured servitude, and then there's some slavery. And, I don't know when my ancestors made it to the colonies, but I don't know that they would not have been affected by this purging of the highlands. And then, as an African American of the United States, like in my community, which was predominantly black. I mean, it was like 99% black. I'm probably 100% black. But these names, that I'm hearing from the Highlands, they are so familiar to me. I mean, it's one of these names is my family name. It's just so weird to like see like to hear these names in the context of Scotland, and not in the context of my own community, my own culture, because everybody around had names like this, um, that are very recognizable. And then you're reminded that these are English names, they're Scottish names, they're Irish names, they're not African names, but these are the names that we're left with after slavery. So it was just it was just kind of, something to scratch your head on. It's like, oh, these names came from this place. These names that we bear, because we were at one time colonized and taken. They're from this place that I'm learning about, and possibly from this time period. But I've got to go because my time is up. Thank you for listening. Bye from the lighthouse.